it's Tracy here from Curios and Crafts, back with another crochet book review. So this one is called the Granny Square Book, 2nd edition by Margaret Hubert. So it's a decent size, probably about 8 by 8 inches, and we'll get straight into it. Lots of decent pictures, contents page, bit about basics up to page 25 where your 100 granny square patterns start, and then up page 142 designing with granny squares, and that goes through to page 207. So there's quite a lot of patterns at the back, which we'll get to. Again, there's nowhere where it specifically says whether it's UK or US crochet terms, but when you look at the, obviously we're in just the crochet basics part here, when you look at the description of a single crochet, that tells you it is a US crochet terms that are being used in this book. So lots of nice colourful pictures, helpful I would say for a beginner who's not really sure about how to do things. Strangely enough, it's got front post double crochet but hasn't got a back post double crochet. Bullion stitch, which is a bit advanced really for beginners, and how to do a popcorn, that's useful. Crochet instructions, all of the abbreviations are on that page. And then this one's got your diagram symbols. Techniques, how to crochet a classic granny square. Lots of useful pictures for somebody who's just starting out and isn't sure. Details and finishing, beginning chains, invisible join, picking up stitches for borders, seams, whip stitch, weave, single crochet seam in a chain join. So different ways of joining. Then we get straight into the pictures of the granny square patterns. So each page has got a picture of the finished square. It has got the crochet chart, and it has got the written instructions. So, and it also gives a skill level. So this one's saying intermediate, and this one is saying easy. So it's you know, you can pick and choose. It's not just, so this one's, you've got a square but you've also got a half square. So if you want to design something using, you know, using things on the diagonal, you can fill in your gaps with a half square. Classic granny, full square, half square. These do only count as one, by the way. So that's pattern number 4. That is still pattern number 4. Pattern number 5, Nicole's granny, and how to do a half. And then the diagram has got a different colour ink for each row. So if you're trying to learn how to use the diagram, it's useful in terms of, you know, where you're stopping, where you're starting. And then there's lots of different flowery ones, lacy ones, flowers, lily pond, cone flower, cluster, granny square, building block, Belgian lace, butterfly garden. And see your little butterflies there. I'm just going to quickly flick through the pages. Filet squares, spirals, block stitch flower, Irish rose, Venetian star, that's bunny. Lots of different flowery ones. Say each one has got the diagram as well as the written instructions. So there are 100 granny squares in this book. Have used it a few times for various things if I wanted something just a little bit different. Popcorns and lace, popcorns and shells. You can, obviously I'm just flicking through fast. If you want to have a look at them, you can just slow the video down if you want to look at it. Any specific pages, or pause it or whatever. Different. So we're up to 80. I'm gonna lots and lots of different, one with a heart in it, and nice colourful pictures, so you get a good idea of what you're going to be making. That's us up to 100 granny squares now. So now we get on to the designing with granny squares. Start small, just a very dinky little headband, and it tells you what weight of yarn to use if you haven't got that particular yarn, but it describes what the yarn is, what size hook was used, and what weight of yarn if you want to substitute that for something else. So the projects are a headband, a hat band, adding sleeves to a garment, or sleeve edgings rather, coasters, a loop scarf, how to use a graph to decide, you know, how many squares and half squares you need for your project, quilted vest, lots of instructions for that, Gabrielle shawl, a cropped vest, I'm just seeing, oh yeah, it has got 3 different sizes, small, medium and large, with the bust size as well. Experienced for that one. How to put it all together, beach cover up, Victoria jacket, Devon Cross pullover, Devon Cross being the name of the square that they've used. Again, we yarn weight 3, so that's like a double knitting. Small, medium, large, a bag, a scarf, a market bag, a hoodie, toddler sweater set with a matching hat, baby sweater set, that's using rectangles, bit of double crochet, a baby blanket, another blanket for a lap robe or a crib blanket, that says, table runner and napkin rings, Kiara blanket. We're up to weight 4 yarn now. Whimsy 2 blanket, Emma blanket, so quite a lot of blankets, star hat. Back to double knitting here. Flower garden pillows. That's it. And then an index at the back, which it's got all the squares by name here, which is only useful if you know what the name of the square is that you want to crochet. But obviously, you know, the pictures on each page it's quite easy to flick through and find what you're looking for. So in terms of if you want a load of really different granny squares, this is a good book. It certainly gives a lot of different alternatives, and it obviously, it doesn't say anything on the granny squares about what weight yarn to use, so it's up to you. Obviously, just bearing in mind that if you're using a 1 or 2 weight, you're going to end up with a really small square, and if you're using a 4 or 5 weight, you're going to end up with a nice chunky square. And obviously the size difference between the 2 squares are going to be quite dramatic. But you know, that's useful in terms of depending on what project you're making. If you want to make yourself a chunky blanket, obviously it's going to take a lot less squares if you're using chunky yarn. So, but you can still pick and choose what type of square. So there's no specifics about what yarn to use for each square. That's entirely your choice. So yeah, if you like granny squares, which I do quite a lot of stuff with squares. I like making squares, because simply because if you're out and about, like for example, I've just recently been through cancer treatment, so I was having to go to the hospital and sit and wait around quite often, which drives me insane. So I just put a couple of balls of yarn and a crochet hook in my bag and spent my time sitting in the waiting room crocheting squares. And then, you know, before you know it, after a week's worth of radiotherapy or whatever, you know, you've got enough squares to make something. So I always take a bit of yarn and a crochet hook in my bag, just in case I am stuck somewhere with nothing to do. So so the only thing which I found slightly unusual was the fact that it starts off with a picot square, which is an intermediate skill level, and then followed by a diamond square, rather than starting off with a classic granny square, which is number 4, an R easy. I just, you know, it's nothing to worry about, but I just thought it was a bit weird, because most people, especially if they're new to crocheting and they want to crochet a granny square, most people are thinking about a classic granny. So yeah, I did think that was slightly odd that they'd put an intermediate pattern first. But other than that, I really like the book. It's useful for if you want a square but you want something a little bit different. There's lots and lots and lots in here to choose from. It stays open fairly well. That said, it's been quite well used, and as you can probably see, possibly, I have broken the spine in a couple of places because I've had to keep it open where I wanted it. So I'm sure you know by now my favourite bindings are the spiral bound craft books, because they just fall open easy and stay open, whereas this one, it isn't. But it is a really good book. There's 100 different granny squares to choose from, fabulous colourful pictures and diagrams, and diagrams, pictures and written instructions, which, you know, you can't ask for more than that. And quite a lot of projects at the back if you're just getting started and you don't really know where to start. This type of thing, you know, it's useful for, like, well, let's get to the Obviously a blanket is just a lot of squares joined together. This one, for example, you know, if you do want to make like little baby clothes, this gives you a really good, you know, because you don't have to make the bottom out of granny squares, but it gives you a nice starting point for how you would crochet the top cowl of a baby garment. And you can use that for any project you want, that part of the design, and then just add on whatever you want, or no sleeves there, you know, just put a nice little edging on, and then maybe do lots of shell stitches or something like that. In fact, I've done something similar to that myself, but with the bottom, it's like a little dress rather than a sweater or a cardigan, and the bottom has been made out of shells, and it looks really pretty. So I'll maybe blob a picture of that on as well to show you what I've done, but it's using that type of top. So yeah, it's a good book. I do like it, and as I say, if you're a granny square fan, which I am, you know, you can't really go wrong with this book. I think it's definitely worth, I think, again, I bought it on Amazon UK. This one says $18.99, but I don't know if that's how much I paid. I'll put the information in a pop-up, how much it cost me and where you can get hold of it. So yeah, that's the Granny Square book, 2nd edition. Hope it's been useful. Bye for now.